genetic splicing, DNA manipulation, fringe science, alien fallen angel technology. There's lots of talk in the world today about how a lot of the technological advancements and genetic splicing and all of the things seen in modern science is really coming from a higher intelligence or a reptilian species of people, you know, the Illuminati, the high-ups, or extraterrestrials and whatnot. What many people don't know is that in the lost book of the Bible, aka the book of Enoch, this phenomenon of genetic splicing and genetic engineering was actually documented. The fallen angels were doing genetic splicing and mixing the DNA gene pools of different creatures on the earth. They even sinned against mankind, and that is why the Nephilim species of giants came to exist. It is said in Genesis that all flesh became corrupt because of what the fallen angels had done upon the earth. And I believe they did genetic splicing, and the earth became completely corrupt to the point to where the Most High Yah had to destroy it. Y'all remember the story in which the Most High destroyed the world with a flood, and he told Noah and his family to take the clean and the unclean animals onto the ark to save them? He did that because Noah was the only man with the pure human DNA in the form of Adam. DNA that wasn't tainted and corrupted by what the fallen angels were doing on earth. And that's why he was told to take the clean and the unclean animals onto a ship to save them. But what if I told you that this great flood that took place wasn't a false story? It wasn't something that was just in the Bible. First of all of your ancient cultures all around the world have a great flood epic. And then when you look at archaeology and what archaeology has to say about the earth's history, it is completely evident that a great flood has taken place on this earth. They can tell by the way the earth's sediment is. So like when you look at the Grand Canyon, for instance, and you look at certain fossils that were found in various places all around the world, you know, really huge skeletons of dinosaur bones and fish and strange looking bug creatures that were seemingly preserved underneath this sediment. Let me tell you about that really quick. What was going on in those days of Noah, like I said, genetic engineering. The fallen angels were doing genetic engineering, and it resulted in these weird mutant creatures that weren't necessarily supposed to exist. We see these fossil remains, and they, like I said, were buried in sediment. The only way that sediment could have formed was if tons and tons and thousands and billions of gallons of water was flooded up onto the earth. You know, enough water to cover continents. The whole entire earth was flooded. And with all of that water, all of the mud and the rock and mixtures of rock and clay was mixed up in this water. And as the flood water finally began to settle, the sediment settled as well. And whatever was caught underneath that sediment was preserved. And that's why you have fossils today that look a certain way. And listen, I've done this experiment myself. I remember there was once upon a time where we had a swimming pool in our backyard. And it kind of got a little dingy or whatever from the weather and just the time it sat in the backyard or whatever. And the children, they definitely weren't playing in it no more. But basically there was a lot of algae in the water, and there was also a lot of dirt and mud that the children had thrown in there over time, you know? And because it would rain and it would storm, and all of the mud that was inside of the swimming pool, I remember when we dumped the water out and we just left the mud that was in the bottom of the swimming pool there. I remember a while came, it had dried up in the summer heat. And when I started chipping away at the dirt that was left at the bottom, I saw basically the remains of bugs and other creatures that it was basically buried underneath the dirt sediment that was left in there by the children. So basically, you multiply this experiment that I did times 500 billion times just a little bit below infinity, right? And you get the Great Flood. All this mud that was mixed up and dispersed inside of the water from this violent Great Flood. And then all that, as the flood finally dissipates and the water is settling, all the elements are starting to disperse once more. The water is evaporating and receding back into the oceans and everything. Now you have land masses with animals and creatures and weird animals that seemingly weren't supposed to exist, buried underneath all of that sediment. That's what the fallen angels were doing back then. They took part in technological advancements, they took part in genetic engineering, and they took part in interbreeding with mankind and forming various different humanoid species. And they did a lot of things back during Noah's time. Now, biblical scripture in the New Testament, Yeshua is talking about what the end days are going to be like. And he says it's going to be just like the days of Noah. Now, fallen angels had a lot to do with the fact that in Noah's time, the earth had to be destroyed. And fallen angels today are doing things, or should I say the seeds and children of fallen angels. And you look at the fruits and you look at what's going on in these final days and all of the technological advancement and seemingly outer-worldly, outlandish things that seem to be taking place in society today. Genetic splicing, the corruption of flesh in the same manner that it was corrupted during the time of Genesis. Basically, the world was destroyed back then because of the fact that the Most High's original creation had been tainted and corrupted. And you look at what's going on today with the genetic splicing that they're doing of food, genetically modified food and genetically modified animals, and all the various things that they're doing with science now. All of this stuff is an abomination to the Most High. And that's why the world is being set on a path of destruction right now. Because right now everything is corrupted. Judging all of these signs and everything that it was prophesied would be going on in the last days. How it would be like the days of Noah. How there would be fallen angel technology and all of the things that we see mentioned in Genesis happening now. All the things that happened in the book of Enoch happening all over again. History repeating itself. It's time for everyone to finally wake up, and it's time for them to realize what's going on and that we are very close now. Once again, the Most High is going to reactivate nature to preserve its natural state, and all the things that weren't meant to be here will be destroyed.